Thank you for watching Smarter Planning, Implementing JIRA Core for your business teams. Check out the roundtable discussion we had with Renee Trepagnier from Indeed, Ben McChesney from Helios Interactive, and from Radek Orszewski and Rachel Gillis from Aeria Games.
Now we'll go through a roundtable and open discussion, and I'll ask questions, and anyone is free to answer. What would you say was your biggest aha moments when implementing JIRA with your business teams? What kind of triggered that moment?
I think for me, it was when I started to realize that it was really easy to map back how they wanted it to go back to JIRA workflows. It was really easy just to visualize that for them, and then we just sat in the room and we worked with the workflow designer, and just in the same room they were able to be like, yeah, that looks right, or no, that doesn't make sense. So I think just being able to really visually show that to the team and get feedback on it was really, really helpful. And I think it's less of an aha moment for me, but more for them and the team. And they were like, oh, this is how it works. This is how we can use it. Okay. And once we kind of got that, that concept across, everything else flowed a lot smoother after that.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about customers saying that everyone has a process in each individual team. And the process is usually in their head. And one of the things that actually kind of aha moments for JIRA Core is that they can actually visualize what that process is, and it's defined, and you can see it. So that's really great insight. It's nice that you've underscored that. Does anyone else have any other aha moments when implementing JIRA for their business teams?
One thing for me is that it's very easy to overcomplicate a process because that's how they've always done it. So I think that working with teams and helping them really sort of streamline what they truly need versus what they've always sort of expected was very helpful for us.
That's great. And how did you guys were able to overcome the initial resistance to going into JIRA? JIRA was, ideally known as a more technical tool for software and development teams, and then getting business teams into JIRA, sometimes is a little struggle because they're used to their, email and spreadsheets. How was that transition?
And indeed, it was not hard at all. We could easily show people that people were frustrated because everything was all over the place, and it was super difficult to keep track of the requests. And so it was super easy to just show people how much better it was going to be by just putting a basic workflow in. So I think the initial nervousness about I don't understand JIRA and I don't want to go there was soon transformed into, oh, this is so much better, and I can keep it out of my email where I'm losing track of things.
I believe we can add something here. I would say, from our experience, it was important to really talk to the people using their language. So we usually inject terms coming from JIRA, like workflow or screen customization, very late, if at all, because especially with people who never worked with the tool before or who had bad experience with the tool, it's really important to drive the conversation with them through the business value that we are supposed to bring and what kind of pain points, what kind of problems they have and they want to resolve with it. So if you actually do it this way, you don't really shoot at them with the terms that they are not seeing as a part of their everyday language. This is really helpful.
What we found to be really helpful is just kind of showcasing the benefits they're going to get out of it. If we think of it in terms of features and benefits, I think that helped it go sell it a long way. For us internally. And then the other thing we did was we just made it, if we were using another product that maybe had all the information in it and we were switching to JIRA, we would migrate everything over and we would talk about, here's JIRA, here's your workflow, here's some example things, and then we just picked a day that we were going to switch to JIRA, so we made sure everything was migrated and in place, so it was a pretty seamless transition. That was really helpful for us to make sure they stopped using the old product.
That's great. So with the business end users adopting JIRA and getting used to its interface, how is the management management team adopted JIRA? Do they find themselves actually using a lot of the dashboards and reports and getting a lot more visibility? I think each one of you has touched upon that. I was wondering if you guys could go in a little bit more detail.
I guess it's always hard for our senior managers who are super busy and not totally available for this kind of oversight all the time. But again, I feel like the way we sold it to them was by showing them how much more efficient they could be using the dashboards or being able to comment on issues and seeing the whole thread as it existed in a ticket as opposed to trying to find something in their email. I even have a funny story. One of our executives who took a long time to really warm up to JIRA is now actually, commenting in tickets saying, "I'll be at the meeting in 5 minutes," because he knows everybody's looking at the ticket.
I think, Ben, you mentioned to me in previous conversation how you actually use another tool to help you with your reporting. Can you provide us more details on that?
Yeah, so we're weird. We're probably not as so right now I'm in charge of all. I'm also our data scientist, and among all those other roles I fill. So right now the biz dev team is a little relying on me to get the dashboards and things they need. So we actually use another tool to visualize a web dashboard. That's just to get in a way that's pretty accessible. Although I do want to look more into what can we do natively inside JIRA, so that if there is something through the dashboard, if there is something that they want to see and get a quick glance at, they can just log in. Right now, how it works is I just provide updates at a timed interval basis. And it's like, hey, dashboard was updated today, go look at it. But right now, it's not real time, which could definitely be improved.
And Renee, your team is program managed, but the question to everybody is, how has JIRA impacted program management in your organization?
Well, and indeed, I mean, the program managers here live and breathe JIRA, so we're the biggest fans. I actually dressed up as a JIRA icon for Halloween one year. So it has basically completely infused our lives, and everyone on my team knows all the JIRA best practices and how to set up workflows that are efficient, and it's really made a big impact. It's the only tool we use for project management, actually, besides the wiki.
I think we have interesting, let's say, experience here. Naturally, management program managers are looking for different information in JIRA than, let's just say, regular team members. I think what we've managed to do was to add extra layers of abstraction to tickets inside projects or inside team projects. So we've managed to build a kind of Kanban portfolio for the company. So people who are interested in what's going on, do we have any collision, do we have any conflict between the products or projects, they can look into certain dashboards or boards and figure it out from there.
We also purchased a nice add-on called Big Picture, which we're using for displaying and comparing program schedules. So we actually have a capacity meeting with service providers, which Creative Services is part of, and we sit together and we'll go all the issues that are creative specific and then all the ones that are localization specific, and it becomes very easy to see where there's too many tickets being requested simultaneously.
You touched upon my next question was, do you guys use add-ons to enhance your JIRA experience?
The answer is definitely yes.
And can you touch upon them?
So again, indeed, we use Confluence for sort of the documentation of requirements and the project planning details such as milestones and stuff like that. But we use JIRA gadgets to pull in the details. So the work is broken out in JIRA, but the place where you go to sort of find out progress or other things such as policies or the seating chart in the office all of those are on our wiki.
So we also use a lot of plugins and add-ins. We actually experiment quite a bit with them. The big picture one I mentioned already was one that we've been using a lot, and we've started using quite a few in Confluence, which is part of what the champions do. They get suggestions and then experiment and see if the plugins are very popular. And actually the most popular plugin is the Karma Points plugin for Confluence, where there's now a bit of a competition to gain karma by commenting and editing on Confluence. And sometimes people will be like, no, I need to post the meeting notes because I need to boost my karma.
Yeah, so we see this gamification aspect of it, and I think it's really cool. We also use, let's just say, some add-ons which are working more behind the front end of the tool. So for certain projects, we want to reduce the number of issue types, and for example, we support the team by customizing their screens in a dynamic way. So we have like dynamic forms, which basically can really change what users, like requesters, see when they want to create a ticket. So they don't see the noise of the fields that they are not interested in, and they maybe don't even know what is it for.
During this webinar, you guys brought up a lot of different groups that were using it, a lot of use cases. I think, Ben, one of the questions I have for you is, you mentioned you implement business goals into JIRA. Can you explain how that happens? Like, I know usually people write down ideas, but how does that progress through a workflow? What exactly is your process?
Sure. So I think when we're coming up with the workflow, typically what we'll do is, we'll just use invoicing as an example, and I'll just use fake numbers for the sake of argument. But if we're looking through, kind of how our current invoicing process works, typically I go through, whether it's a QuickBooks export or whatever, and kind of get like, what are our current metrics? Like how often, what is our kind of response rate? How often are these things getting sent out? What percentage of, clients are overdue on their first payment? How clear is this to everyone? How often are you being interrupted is actually a really big metric for us. So then what we do is we just have sometimes it's a separate sheet, sometimes it's just in JIRA, but we just kind of record what the difference is, or if I pull metrics, we kind of compare. So we can see kind of what is the effect of switching to JIRA versus our previous tool. And a lot of times we just, we don't know. We say, hey, I think now I maybe get interrupted, 15 times a week, or someone says, what's the status of this invoice? Let's try and get that down to 2, right? So we can actually measure the difference, by drawing a line in the sand and making sure we're working towards our goal.
Has anyone else implemented kind of different types of use cases that are other than the traditional, team processes, such as perhaps idea management or business goals, like what Ben does?
Yeah, we also have cases for community development. This is also something what marketing team is partially involved, but not only. The other one are also close to contract tracking with freelancers or that's it.
Okay. I think one of the questions that a lot of our audience would like to hear more about is like security and permission. So we talked about visibility across the teams. We talked about, processes within the teams. Have you guys set up some type of, limitations in order for security or permissions to ensure that only certain people have access to these projects or certain aspects to transitioning a certain task? How have you guys implemented those features?
We use permission schemes in conjunction with roles and groups. So the groups of people that we want to either have access to or not have access to are defined based on what team you're on or what function you have in the company. And those groups are they're maintained as sort of outside of JIRA through some scripts that we have to update personnel changes. And then within JIRA, the groups are placed within the project roles appropriately by default, so that whenever new projects are created, they're automatically put in the roles and either have access to certain information or we can limit the access. So we definitely manage that through the use of groups, which has been very helpful.
I know what we do at Helios is we have certain issues that are just higher sensitivity, like invoicing and things like that. So the default security permissions on that is a new security control stream group, which only the accounting and invoice team has access to. And then for the sales pipeline, only a certain group, which is the people in that Monday meeting of producers and project managers and biz dev, only they have access to that board and those issue types. So that's kind of how we control access.
And JIRA Core is known to, have all the information in one place. So there's information retention. And one of the features that, our customers love is, the search function. And do you guys use the advanced search functions or JQL to kind of get the information you need? Or do your end users do so?
I particularly use it all the time, mostly because we quite often get people coming to us like, have you ever done anything like this before? And we will use the search function to track down old example tickets and send it to people who are new at the company with, this is how you would request that type of thing. Yes, we've done it before. And we use it to also just find sort of old projects that we need to keep track of, assets have been lost and things like that, especially when we transitioned from working in the marketing project to the creative services project.
Typically how it works for us at Helios is someone will request something, and I will create the JQL and typically make it a quick filter on a board. That's just the easiest way for them to get at what they want. The team knows how to look at, do basic things like, hey, give me all my issues that aren't complete that are assigned to me, but a lot of those are just shared filters I've shared with everyone on the team. Mostly the JIRA product owners here are the ones familiar with JQL.
Yeah, we're the same way. We have our power users that definitely understand how to just go in and write a JQL query, but for the most part, we set up filters and dashboards that help people discover the information that they need more easily.
So I think we're going to be running out of time, but I do have one last question. What is your favorite JIRA Core feature?
Well, I guess in my case, that's also fall into category of like last statement. I mean, the flexibility and customization. I mean, I've been working with many different tools, but I believe sooner or later I was always hitting a limit of like what I could do with the tool. In terms of like customizing this for a need of let's just say non-specific user, like the cases that we discussed in here, the stories. It's relatively obvious that it's working well for software development teams, but when we go outside of this zone, JIRA is still super helpful because you can customize it to pretty much any team needs.
I quite enjoy the ability to get as much data out as possible, sometimes using queries, and we're going to try and hook it into the dashboards and such like, because we quite often get the problem in creative services where somebody's like, I get the feeling that a piece of art takes this long to make, which is very hard to argue against, but I now have tickets and timestamps and all sorts of things which I can show to people and say, no, actually, we have data that shows it takes this long to do it, and we've tracked it specifically in JIRA so you can see the historical data of it.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think for me it's just deep the tool is. Like, I know when I was first using it, just anytime someone gave a request, like, oh, can we have it do this or maybe do this? And just as you dive deeper into it, of like permission schemes and security issue schemes and custom fields and workflow schemes, and just you realize how deep it goes and how much it can do. So I think once you really get into kind of the deep mechanics of how JIRA works with its workflows and issue types and all the default, everything you can set, it's really powerful and just flexible. And I think similar to what was said earlier of just, when we were using other products, we just, at some point, we would hit a wall, and it would just be hack after hack after hack of like, well, we only have these 8 fields, but we're not using these 2, so these 2 fields really mean this, not what their label is. And that just gets really messy, and it just takes too much documentation down the line, where with JIRA, we can just say, this is what it means, this is how it works, and if we want to change it, we can change it. There's not a lot of hackery you have to do.
I agree with all of this. I really like the flexibility of it. In particular, I can create, specific issue types and map specific workflows to them that are unique across different teams so that the flows can be appropriate and actually exactly what each team needs instead of, just sort of expecting them to use everybody else's workflows.
Thank you for joining our webinar. That is the conclusion of our roundtable. Unfortunately, we do not have time for a Q&A, but we'd like to thank our participants for joining our webinar and sharing their stories with us. Thank you, Renee, Ben, Radek, and Rachel. I'm Sheri Atienza, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Thanks for watching our webinar. If you want to learn more about JIRA Core or begin a free trial today, click the Try It Free button on the left. To check out the JIRA Core product tour, click the video playing on the top right. If you have additional questions you want us to answer, visit answers.atlassian.com. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.